Happy anniversary.
You know what? This is a big one.
It's
hard to believe.
Jaws
came out in 1975. This is the 50th anniversary of its release. It was the and big fans of really the very first summer blockbuster. And
Huge.
I remember seeing it. I was 14 years old. And so it was rated PG, and and I was like, okay, let's go see this movie. And it really changed not only that summer, but just the rest of my life, thinking about what it's like to be in the ocean. Because I used to go swimming when I was a kid, but you're in their world.
Yes.
So it's fair. You're fair game. Like, hey, this shark is just hungry. He sees the food and it's coming after you. So I was like, I realized that this movie sort of like, yeah, right. We're just fish food, potential fish food.
Well, it makes you feel vulnerable. See, humans, we feel like we are the apex predators, which technically we kind of are, but we need tools to accomplish that. We can't just do apex predator shit without weapon extras, whereas a lot of animals are built with it. So I think it's always humbling when there's an animal that could actually take us out. And so that blows people's minds. So the idea that this thing that we do for fun, go out in the ocean, have fun, that it could be dangerous because there's an apex predator out there, that was like an eye opener. And, on top of everything else, it was based on a book by Peter Benchley.
Right.
He wrote the book. The movie is way better than the book. Sorry, Peter. It just is. But
it's because of a certain filmmaker.
Peter Benchley has always regretted that his book that he wrote about sharks ended up making sharks public enemy number one. So everybody started going out and killing sharks, which was not cool. And sharks are not the enemy. They are in their habitat doing what they do. They're not there to get us. They see food. And that's part of what we're doing. So I think humans feel very vulnerable when they're out somewhere where they're not the top of the food.
Right.
And so that was the thing where Peter Benchley always regretted it, because he felt like that turned sharks into this big enemy, and they started wiping out the populations of sharks, which was then of course upsets the balance of everything else. So don't do that. Don't hate sharks. They're not the bad guys.
and Spielberg, this was his first. He did a few films before this, but this was, he was only 26 when he made this movie.
Yeah, he was a baby,
and it was cost overruns. The shark didn't work because of the salt water. And it was supposed to take 55 days to film. It was 160. It went triple over the budget. It was supposed to be a $3 million budget. It ended up being $9 million.
$3 million. $3 million. All right, first of all, $3 million budget and rated PG. That's just everything about that is wrong. And let's talk about that shark for a second. So the thing that makes Jaws stand out to me is that everything was on set. No CGI, no special effects. They built an actual shark on a track and they used it. Now, the ocean saltwater is very corrosive and very terrible. So they kept having all kinds of problems with this shark, and they called it Bruce. Who did they name it after? It was named after someone.
It was after Spielberg's lawyer.
That's right.
First name
Bruce.
Was Bruce. Yeah. Shark lawyer.
They called it Bruce, and it drove everyone crazy because always breaking down. And that's not the thing's fault. They should have thought of that. But he's a new filmmaker at the time. But that's, I think, what makes the movie so good. Everybody thought it looks so fake when it jumps out of the water. But they made the shark. It was it was a physical thing. So I'm always very impressed with the fact that this was just on set, real effects, no extra bells and whistles, like real there.
And there's so many great scenes, but the one that stands out to me has to do with the real shark is when it leaps up onto the boat, and then Quint slides down into the mouth, and he's kicking it, and he finally gets, and blood is coming out of his mouth, and it's like, I remember that was horrifying.
So horrifying.
You can laugh at it and say, well, it's a fake shark. Believe me, nobody in the theater was horrifying. Like, what a way to go,
So let's take a look at the trailer real fast, because I want to get us all in the vibe. We're doing this look back at Jaws because it's one of our favorite films of all time. It's one of the greatest films of all time. It made Steven Spielberg's career. It's 50th anniversary of this movie. 50th anniversary. This movie's 50 years old, and it's still, they have not made a better shark movie. Nobody has done it. You cannot top this movie. 50 years they've been trying to make this movie over and over. Sequels, other shark movies. No one's coming. So let's take another quick look back at the trailer. And this is the IMAX trailer. We're going to have one of the later ones so that we can see it a little more fleshed out.
Right.
So let's take a look at it fleshed out. I get chills.
Yeah.
So good. That's too. Woo!
You yell shark, we've got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July.
Oh. Oh, they're showing everything.
I know.
We're all gonna die.
We're all gonna die.
This shark?
He's got lifeless eyes, black
Oh,
eyes, like a doll's eyes.
Are they gonna use bigger boat?
That scene too.
Oh, we're gonna need a bigger boat.
Yep.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
I love this movie.
That's ad-libbed.
Oh, I love it. So good. All right. So that gives you a little taste.
It's just a movie that, the John Williams score is beyond iconic, and all the actors are great in this. Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss. There was real tension amongst those three because they're stuck on that boat for months.
Nobody was happy.
Yeah,
Brutal
and Spielberg did just some great, that shot of, like he has this, you got to chump some of this shit. So there's a laugh and then there's the scare, that's sort of back and forth. That's hard to do. And he pulled it off in that scene. And the movie is just nonstop. Great.
He didn't telegraph that. And that's what was so great. Like, you were taking a break from all of that. They were having kind of funny little bickering back and forth. And you're like, yeah, okay, fine, I'll do it. You did not see that coming. It was so great. So I love that. And it's a real shark coming out of there. It's like, a real fake shark. But, let's talk about John Williams for a second, because this composer has done so many iconics. Like, no one tops this guy. And everyone that does, I feel like every new composer in movies now is basically inspired by or emulating John Williams. He is the guy. And so when Spielberg worked with him, he always worked with him. Like, he's the guy. He's like, I'm working with John Williams. That's it. Like, he became part of the team. Yes. So there's a documentary about John Williams that's out that Steven Spielberg is in, and he talks about working with John Williams. And there's so much great stuff about Jaws. He talks about how he was a huge fan of John Williams. He couldn't wait to get him to work on it. He goes, "Oh, you're gonna work on my movie. Let me see what you got." And John Williams would go, "Okay, this is what we got." Dun. He plays on the piano, the two notes. Yeah. Spielberg's like, "That's all you got? I got 2 notes." He's like, no, this is gonna be it. And he's just like, dun 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 dun. So he's just playing it, and Spielberg's like, "Oh man." Right. So then they show a scene of the scene in the boat where they're all racing out to get the shark, and there's Spielberg put on temp music, and it's this really like this really suspense music, and John Williams saw it and he goes, no, this is what we're going to do. And this is all in documentary. It's great to see because you get to see them talking.
It's a really great documentary with a great poster, by the way.
Yeah, and I worked on the poster. Thanks. It was such a thrill. Oh my God. So they show the scene without any music. And that's always kind of interesting to me to see, like, just this raw footage. Right. And you're like, oh yeah, I guess it's fine. And then they showed that terrible music that Spielberg had on there. And you're like, oh, that's too much. That's way too much. It's too loud. Yeah. It's too annoying. And then you see this, what John Williams want to bring to it is the idea of kind of a pirate epic. Like, they're like this bigger, glorious epic movie, not this suspense movie. So you bring in this beautiful music, this kind of like this orchestra doing it, and it was so perfect. You're like, see, that's where it's a partnership. Here's a guy that comes in and he made Steven Spielberg's scene better. Just by the music. I loved it.
Going back to the pirate, like, there's a scene where they have those big yellow sort of float things that they try, and then the music there is very sort of nautical. It is. Kind of almost like inspiring in a way, like you're out in the sea, that kind of vibe. So it was just, everything. There's not a false note in the movie. Every actor, even the small character bits, like the early on when poor little Alex Kintner, the boy on the raft, gets eaten. His mother,
rest in peace, Alex.
His mother comes out looking for him, and just the angst, and the realizing the boy's not coming back. And then later she slaps Roy Scheider, his character, and you just feel the loss and the anger and the sadness. Every little character, every little bit of casting is spot on. Everyone. There's not a false note.
Nope. And because it's Spielberg, because he has such a great way with characters, you care about all these characters, which makes all of the action all the more like terrifying because you care about what happens to them. So here you are with these really fleshed out characters. You have Roy Scheider, who's trying to do a good thing. He's a cop. He's on the beat on this, Martha's Vineyard, but it's, not.
But he won't go in the water.
He's afraid to swim.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be an Amity. So you have his character where he's kind of this kind of wussy cop. He's in a low crime beat. Everything's cool. But he seems like a good guy. And then you
Right.
have, of course, the mayor, who's the bad guy. They always are, right? So he doesn't want to scare everyone. I'm sure the shark's gone. We'll be fine. Don't kill the business that we had. This tourist business keeps this whole island alive. Don't you
Right.
scare people away the shark. So he's there. That great scene, that telescoping scene where they show that close up of him, and he also
Yeah.
realizes it's all going down.
Yeah.
I love it because he now is responsible because he didn't fight hard enough. That's how he feels.
Right.
Like he got beaten down
Right.
by the mayor. He's like, fine, we'll do it. I'll just keep an eye on things. You can't keep an
Right.
eye on a shark. So I love that whole scene. And what's also great about it, I guess they shot in the winter because it wasn't tourist season. So that because they didn't want to interrupt the tourist season. Everyone is freezing. If you look in the background, you see everyone's got blankets on. Their like teeth are chattering. They're like,
Yeah, because it's cold in the winter in New England. Believe me.
it was
And,
cold. Yeah, they
it was
shot
shot
this
in
in New England.
Martha's Vineyard. You know, which is up
Everybody
the
had to
coast of
act like
Massachusetts.
they're having a great time in the sun, but it was actually really freezing. So I love little tidbits like that because you wouldn't really notice that when you watch it, but later as you're watching, you realize people going in the water are like, please tell me. It's like, please tell me. But they had this, and I think what worked in their favor too is the fact that the shark was malfunctioning a lot, and
Right.
they weren't sure about it. So they hid a lot of it. They showed it like deeper underwater. You just saw the fit. The fact they had to hide it worked in his favor. And that's where I feel like all the shark movies after this didn't work because you show the shark too much, it stops being scary. I think the more I see the shark, the less scary it gets. That scene of the guy on the boat and he's like, hey, my boat tipped over, and you see just this big mouth coming up from the depths. You don't really see it. Horrifying because you're not seeing, here comes the shark swimming over, and here's this, it's like, it's just terrifying about because your mind is filling in the blank. So
you don't see the shark until 1 hour and 21 minutes into the movie.
But you hear it.
There's shark deaths and there's stuff that's happening, but you don't see it. And then when you see it for the last hour or 45 minutes, it's that much more terrifying. Also, plus it didn't work for a while. So they said, we'll shoot all these scenes without the shark, and then we'll just get it working eventually. And then we'll do the last scenes, with the shark in it.
But
so
it worked.
It totally
all the
worked.
difficulties made it better. So crazy.
My father had a friend who went to Martha's Vineyard and was there the summer they were filming that, or their winter. And he saw them filming it, and he told my father, he goes, but this is going to be such a terrible movie. This shark is so fake and so lame. So we all went together, and at the end of the movie, my dad was like, oh, that wasn't lame at all. That was really
not lame at all.
scary.
It's a movie magic. I'm always amazed when you're on a movie set and you see how things are coming together and you're like, man, it's so rough looking. Like, how is this ever going to work? And then when it works, I feel like that is just magic to me. I never get tired of seeing people on set, cut or action, and everything seems like it's barely working. And there's a bunch of guys standing around tool belts, and there's apple boxes everywhere. And you're just like, how is this going to be good? And then there's people like big camera in their face. Like, how? Amazing.
I'm going to give you two trivia questions. One very easy and one difficult. Okay, easy one. What's the name of the boat? Quint's boat.
Oh God, I'm not ready for this.
Oh.
No, I know this. I know this stuff. Now I'm just panicking. Crap.
Okay. Don't. I'll pass on that one.
I've memorized the movie, but I don't know.
Okay.
I'm really bad at
okay. The first license plate that comes out of the shark when they kill it, they split up. What state?
Dude, seriously.
I'm just kidding. But there's all kinds of fun.
Give me those. Okay, let's say, what are they? What's the trivia?
Well, Louisiana was the state. And the name of the boat, you'll remember this, Orca.
Yeah. Orca.
Yeah, and they made a Jaws ripoff, Dino De Laurentiis, a couple of years later, called Orca, about a killer whale. Killer
orca.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So I think it's interesting too, because here's a movie that is 50 years old, and I'm assuming everyone on the planet has seen this movie. And then you forget it's 50. Maybe people haven't seen it, but if they haven't, they still know the soundtrack. I mean, how many soundtracks can you say that about? Not too many movies. I say like maybe on one hand, can I name that movie from a soundtrack?
Right. And John Williams, like he probably has half of those, or all of them.
Exactly.
Yeah. But
he did The Empire Strikes Back. I mean, so iconic. Still using it. And he created that sort of idea. This is a documentary too. I highly recommend watch this documentary because it's not just about him. It's about filmmaking and how his music enhances filmmaking. As he talks about, like he thought of every time a character in Star Wars comes on screen, they're going to have their own theme song. So every time they come on, there's a little lilt of music, so you know who's on screen. Beautifully done, and you don't notice it till you notice it. Like it's so the minute somebody comes in, their little soundtrack, it's like so smart. Nobody's done that. Nobody did that till then. Now Jaws, the shark was the only music that mattered.
No, brilliant guy, and Yeah, like, the documentary is really interesting. Plus, he did
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff you probably don't even know he did. He's just that talented.
Oh, he's
But
unbelievable.
Spielberg put him on the map, and then like after that, Spielberg was on a run. Close Encounters, E.T. I mean, on and on and on. But Jaws sort of was like, who is this guy?
Who
And
is
this
this
young
guy?
filmmaker making beautiful, incredibly well crafted, popular filmmaking. And I think it lost out in the 1975. Academy Awards. Now it was a huge, a great list. I mean, it was Barry
Phenomenon.
Lyndon, One
Yeah.
Flew
Oh,
Over
yeah.
the Cuckoo's Nest, Dog Day Afternoon. I mean, these are Nashville. These are films that are still classics today.
Yeah, all of
Any
them.
one of those would have won in any other year. But Jaws probably was not going to win because it was considered popular and not
Yeah.
really sort of like
Too
a more of a,
commercial.
new artist thing. And I think Spielberg always had that against him. He makes populist films,
Yeah.
but they're always good. Well, 99% of them are really good. So anyway.
Well, Jaws did win Best Score,
Yep.
which it should, and then also won Best Sound, because imagine all the different layerings of sound, because this movie is basically in 3 parts. It's like the last part was a big nautical, like he says, big nautical adventure. It wasn't
Right.
even like a scary movie at that point. It was just big. The first one was kind of like the stalker serial killer at the very beginning, and
Yeah.
then we have Best Film Edit. So we have all of that, which that's when you realize it's a great editor, because you see how it was made and how hard it was to make, and how the shark was such a problem. So the editing is just genius.
Yeah.
And that opening scene in that trailer you saw, that's the opening scene where they just have this woman going out for a swim, and you hear that music and she's swimming, and you hear that dun, 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 and like that is so iconic. There is no better scene in a movie than that scene. I mean, just holy shit. So then to add, genius on top of genius, we also have the movie poster, which I am wearing. All right, so let's talk about the movie poster. All right.
Well, yeah. I mean, to me, when I saw that, it brings that fear of what is underneath you.
Yeah.
You're just swimming. You're just
minding
swimming.
her own business.
Right, but underneath is this thing that could swallow you whole, and obviously
look how big it is. God.
I know, yeah, and just just showing the teeth, showing the rows of teeth, because back then I didn't know about what a shark, mouth looked like. You just
we all got an education in sharks when this came
out.
out.
My God, there's like 3 rows of teeth, and they're all in different directions, and it could tear you apart with one bite. And I just remember like this, and it's a painting, it's a beautiful painting.
It's an illustration. It was done by Roger Castle. Is it Roger? Wait, Roger or Robert? Roger Castle. This is 1981. He was he's born in 1931. He died in November 8th, 2000.
Yes.
But he created this as a piece of art for a movie. It was no big deal. Who knew?
And I think it was a small little.
It's 8.5 by 11.
Yeah,
it's small. So he illustrated this. No one knows where. It's one of the missing treasures of the world. It's missing. It's probably in a flat file somewhere in a studio, in an office. No one's looked in.
Oh, well, hopefully,
it might
as
have been
opposed to being
away.
Right. That's what I fear.
Some people think maybe like a studio executive took it and they're just hiding it or keeping it. But I feel like if somebody did that, they'd be bragging about it, because there's no reason they wouldn't. Like I don't think I hope someone's taking care of it, but this is the one thing. This is like my holy grail. I would love to find this. It's just.
What do you think if somebody said, "Okay, I'm gonna put it in Sotheby's, auction"? What do you think that piece of art would go for? Seriously. And was the word Jaws in that? In the actual painting?
No, I'm sure it was just illustration.
Yeah, the illustration.
I cannot imagine how much this would be. I mean, it's so legendary and it has such a mystique, being missing, and it's one of a kind. And the fact it was done by hand, illustrated.
Right. Yeah.
I remember when they illustrated it, they had to also hide her. They kind of have her, because in the opening scene she's nude, swimming nude. So they got in kind of some trouble here. So they had to kind of obscure her a little more. You can still kind of tell she's not wearing anything, but they had to kind of mess around with that a little bit. But yeah, this is like one of those things. Like it would go for millions. There's no way it wouldn't. In fact, I feel like instead of being sold, it should be put in the museum. Put in the Academy Museum and keep it safe.
That would be where it needs to be. Yeah, I would go crazy looking at that. Because I studied that poster, especially the swimmer. When I was a 14-year-old, I was like, "What's going on there?" I know.
But yeah, one of the great posters of all time, and that's just one of those posters. And I love that it wasn't a computer; it was done by hand and illustrated, and it's still gone. It's missing. It just drives me crazy. Yeah. It wasn't gone. They make it come back. So I always thought that was really interesting. He also did some Star Wars stuff, and he was also a big illustrator, but he doesn't even know where it is. I was always asking him when he was still alive. They were like, "Where is it?" It's like a studio executive.
It was something
he bought it. It was just another gig for him. He was like, "Yeah, fine, I'll draw this." It was no big deal. And that's what you never know
You never
when a
know.
movie poster is going to be the movie poster. You just don't know.
But
Crazy.
it's a film that I'm sure everybody watching has seen it. If you haven't,
Please.
well, it should be the
My
first thing you
God.
do. But also see it again because I
Yeah.
saw it with my daughter a few years ago. She had never seen it. We went to that IMAX thing
Oh.
here in Burbank, and she loved it because, of course, seeing it on the big screen is so much
Oh, it's
different
so
than watching
great.
it on television. The
Yeah.
big music, that everything about it was
Ah.
like, it still packs a wallop. And when a 50-year-old movie does that, even with the effects, you go, okay, it's 50-year-old, but the effects still work
They still work.
incredibly well.
Yeah.
Everything about it's perfect. You just go, my God, I'm basking in actually a perfect film.
It doesn't
And-
feel like it's dated at all. This is the movie when people say, what movie have you seen more than any other? This is the one. I can't even count the times I've seen this movie. It's innumerable. It's just
It's comfort food for us.
It is.
Now,
It
really
is.
is. It's like,
And the thing is, it had humor, it had scares, like legitimate scares. It had beauty because gorgeous cinematography and locations, and it had the great character building, and the shark had a personality. It was just like, it was amazing. It's the one movie I've forgiven for actually killing an animal, and this is one.
yeah. Well,
Because it was kind of asking for it.
it still went over the edge. But here's one thing. I just read an interesting article. This is not off topic, but just about the New York Times talking about how Jaws 2 is a lot better than people think. And I remember I saw Jaws 2 when it came out.
Right.
And of course, it couldn't compare to the first one. It was a sequel. It didn't have Richard Shaw. It didn't have Robert Shaw or Richard Dreyfuss.
Well, yeah, because he died.
I know. But it didn't even have Matt Hooper. It just had Brody, but still, that's actually a really good movie, and it sort of works.
Works.
No, I would say it's a very good film. Like, it's one worth watching. If you say, I'm not going to watch the second Jaws, you should. After that, forget it. Jaws 3D and Jaws: The Revenge are horrible films.
Terrible.
Garbage.
They were just a cash grab. You can tell they're just capitalizing. There's no artistry.
Right.
I saw it was directed by Jeannot Swark.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What else has he done? He
did
Jaws 3D.
I think he did Somewhere in Time.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah,
really
with Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour. So he was a French director, I think, in that time that made films that were. But it's worth seeing. It's got some really legitimate. There's one, a girl on a water ski. They sort of amped that kind of stuff up. It was fun, worth checking out. And the music's still there. So anyway, it's a great movie. 50th anniversary. Happy anniversary to Jaws and everybody involved.
It's my favorite movie of all time. That's still at the top of the list. It has been there since I've seen it. It's like nothing's replaced it yet. And I've seen a lot of good movies, a lot of bad ones. I've seen a lot of really good ones. And we'd love to hear if you have any stories about Jaws. Like, when you went and saw it in the theater, did you go with your parents? Like, or have you seen it lately? What did you think? Like, what are your impressions of Jaws? Because I just feel like this is one of those just like perfect masterpieces. You can't touch it. Even with its flaws, it's perfection. So let us know what you think.
And they will watch it, in another 50 years, there'll be a Jaws 100th anniversary, and people will still be talking about it.
We'll still be here. In 50 years, we'll be talking about our channel. It'll be skeletons, but we're going to get in here and talk about Jaws again.
Oh, that's so sad. Okay. Anyway,
all right.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye.